Welcome to the radio station. Today we have a special show for you. It will be about Germany. We will call four important people who will talk about the unification of Germany, World War I, wars between the wars, and the actual World War II. Don't say this as offensive, we just try to give you background for our actual problem from another point of view. So our first guest will be Otto von Bismarck. Let's call him now.
Hello, Mr. Applebot.
Hello, Mr. Bismarck. Welcome to the radio station. Now, if you permit me, I will ask you a few questions. What were the reasons to look for unification of all the German states?
Well, to begin with, all these states had sense of identity with each other because they all formed part of the Holy Roman Empire. This meant they often shared the same traditions, language, and ideals. And of course, Otto von Bismarck wanted to create a large, important European central power that could be strong and self-sufficient.
That seems really great. Just another, actually there will be two questions more. Could another state unify the German states as Prussia did?
Nine. I think that question is ridiculous. Of course, there was no other state compared to Prussia, because as soon as I took over, I installed a great army and a total control. As I said long ago, Prussia will run on blood and iron. And this was exemplified by the annexation of Schleswig and Austria in 1864. This shows Prussia's power and sole leadership upon the German Confederation, and we also showed our supremacy in the Franco-Prussian War, when we humiliated the French army and forced them to retreat after a 7-week war with no mercy. This showed the way to the unification of the German Empire in 1871.
That's quite an amazing story. And so, for the last question, Mr. Bismarck, I'd like to ask, what did this cause in future Germany?
This only caused the start of a great German future and development. But the most important of all is the great sense of nationalism, identity, and supremacy in the German people, which will lead us to a bright future.
Thank you very much for your time, Mr. Bismarck. It was a pleasure to meet you.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Well, now, after we have talked with Otto von Bismarck, we will call now Wilhelm III.
Hello, Mr. Applebot. Very pleased to see you here.
The pleasure is mine, Mr. Wilhelm. Do you mind? I will ask you 3 questions. So the first one, what is your opinion regarding the situation of your country before the war?
Well, although my country was not quick enough to colonize large areas in Africa, this had some repercussions in the economy. Although I was confident enough to assure that this was a temporary problem, the strength of Germany prevailed during these setbacks and gave us the confidence to act as we should during this problem.
An interesting answer. Now, do you think imperialism helped shape the ideas of your country?
Of course! Germany is the better country and we did everything we could to make sure the world realizes it. We couldn't expand as the other European powers, but the might of Germany was preserved through our efforts in the war.
No. Do you agree with the terms established in the Treaty of Versailles?
Nay! I only did as my country required at the time. Was I to do nothing while other countries expanded and became stronger? The treaty is completely unfair. It treats Germany as the only responsible for the war and should be punished by it.
We will call now Mr. Goebbels. Hello, Mr. Applebot. Hello, Mr. Goebbels. Well, if you allow me, I will ask you a few questions. Ja, du kannst. Well, how did the NSDAP first gain support from the German people? Well, when my friend Adolf first entered the party, He was used to talking in front of the crowded places of all over Germany. He seemed to be very popular between the widowed ladies who gave him money for their party. As we began to move on more important cities, people were captivated by his words of wisdom. Well, what part did you take in the party? I am in charge of the propaganda and campaign for the party. I used my psychological studies to do so. This part was essential for the influence we caused amongst the Deutsche. I am really near friend to Hitler. In fact, I dare to say I'm his right hand. All my kinder are named before Hitler. All the names start with H. Oh, that's an interesting fact, Mr. Goebbels. There's one last question, if I'm allowed. Well, actually, I need more too. No problem. Was there any violence when the party first started? Of course there was. You cannot achieve anything peacefully in our country. We made many riots and marches in the streets of Berlin, claiming our right to be part of the table in elections. We were kicked out and left with no right in participating. They were as violent as we were. Just one last question that really intrigues me. How did Hitler get the power of Germany? Well, when my friend first entered the party, he had a low rank, but as the time passed he became Chancellor of the party. And after the riot, Hindenburg had no choice but to name him Chancellor of Germany. However, an interesting fact. Thank you for all your time, Joseph Goebbels. Bitte sehr. Our next guest will be Eva Braun, Hitler's secretary and related.
Hello, Mr. Applebot.
Hello, Mistress Eva Braun. Well, if you allow me, I will ask you a few questions. What made Germany enter the war?
Obviously, as my Adolf wants the best for Germany, so he has to expand the territory all over Europe. He first started with Austria, later with Czechoslovakia, and finally with Poland, as he apparently had no excuse for the British and French. Obviously, they don't see the good things Maya will bring us.
Well, I have to admit it's hard to see that, but interesting that, though. Well, the next question. When Germany broke the armistice it had with the United USSR?
We don't want any marches of communist people in Europe, and since British Arab resistance we couldn't stop. So we had to move into the east to defeat those filthy communists. My Adolf thought this was a good idea, but it was due to climate issues. Our poor soldiers died in the plan of my beloved one fell apart.
Well, great think, well, bad thing, and I'm glad for you to show that we are tough. Thank you for that. Why did the D-Day was so unexpected?
Mainly because the coast of Normandy is a bay and a bad place to attack, but good to defend. It seemed obvious that the Allies were not going to attack it there. So my Adolf reinforced another coast. But they attacked there. The field forces there were defeated easily.
Yes, I'm aware of that, and it was really besides you didn't know. Well, it was surprising for you. And I really want to thank your time, Mistress Eva Braun.